Hey everybody, thank you so much for having me here. Like Laura said, we'll be taking questions, so if anything that I'm saying doesn't make sense or you want any follow-ups, just let me know. But the thing that I want to start off with whenever I do talks like this, I always want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, because people talk a lot about mental health now, and nobody really defines what that means, right? If you were to think about, if I just asked you, does anybody know the difference between mental health and mental illness? We might not know, right? And that's okay. No judgments. I bet if I wasn't a therapist, I would never even thought about that. But the difference between mental health and mental illness, I think, is really, really important. And I'll start off by talking a little bit about mental health. And mental health is just like physical health. We all have it. It's something that we can take care of, right? If I'm sleeping well, eating well, I'm, engaging with my friends and family, I'm doing all the self-care that I need. Maybe that's taking walks, maybe that's playing with my children or an animal, maybe that's coloring, journaling, you name it. I'm doing all of that stuff. And then I feel really good, right? I start to feel pretty happy, and I'm able to do all that I need to do every day. That's when we have a good mental health, and I wrote down the definition. And that is, it's a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. So that's mental health. Then on the flip side, mental illness, because I like to compare this to our physical health and physical illness. So mental illness is like when we catch a cold. It's like we may be really tired one day, and then I kind of feel sweaty, and then I'm just not sure, and then I get a cough. And before I know it, I'm laid up in bed, and I can't do all that I need to do every day, right? You have to drink water, take your medicine, you need to sleep. And mental illness really is no different. A mental illness is when our mental health deteriorates to the point that we can't do everything that we need to do in a day. And that's really how we kind of talk about it between mental health professionals, just about functionality. So considering maybe, like Laura was saying, having a tough time in her life, considering how I was doing before that tough time. What was I able to do then? What time did I get up? How restful was my sleep? How did I feel during the day? Was I able to function and focus during work the whole time, or was it really difficult for me and I struggled to stay focused and to complete all the tasks? And so just keep that in mind as we talk about these things, like knowing when to get help. We're going to get into that. But mental health is something we all have, we can all take care of. And when we're really struggling, it can become a mental illness. And there's no judgment on either end. You wouldn't judge someone if they got the flu, would you? And be like, man, you should have just slept more, smiled more, maybe take a shit. You just be like, oh, it sucks. I was sick last week, and it's been going around. And don't think mental illness is something you can catch from people. That's not what I'm trying to get at. I'm just saying that we can struggle to function, and mental health and mental illness are no different than physical health and physical illness. Now, the question that I get a lot on my channel, just in general, is how do I know if my mental illness or my mental health struggles warrant getting professional help? I think a lot of us are scared to reach out, like, ooh, am I sick enough? I get a lot of questions about that, like, how sick do I need to be to call someone? How sick do I have to be to see a psychiatrist or a therapist? A psychiatrist being a medical doctor who can prescribe medication. A therapist is someone like myself that I'm like, how does that make you feel? That's the difference, okay? But how bad does it have to be before we see someone? Not bad at all. I truly believe that all of us can benefit from therapy. I personally have been in therapy off and on since I was probably 15 years old. And that's really just because it's helpful for me to get another perspective. Sometimes I want to cry. Sometimes I want to scream. Sometimes I want to cuss about something that's going on, like, I'm so mad. And I just need someone to not judge me and to know that they can't tell anybody. That can be really powerful too. And so know that we can all benefit from therapy and seeing a mental health professional at any time. If you're ever just feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling maxed out, see someone. I promise we're nice people. We're not weird, and we're normal people just like you, so don't be scared. But I know that most of you aren't really worried about that. We all know it's good to see somebody. But how bad does it have to be? Because I know some of us are just like white-knuckling life, just trying to get through. And you guys work really hard here, I know you do. So how bad does it have to be? Back to what I said about mental health and mental illness. If you're not able to function in your life in some capacity, because we have a lot of different hats we wear, right? There's the hat we wear at work when we're a professional. Then we get home and there's this other hat we wear that could be roommate, spouse, mom, dad, brother, sister. It could be all sorts of things, right? So are any of these parts of your life just not what they used to be? Maybe I can't show up for my friends the way I used to when we go to dinner. I just can't focus. I'm not even listening to them. I'm thinking about the stuff I have to do, or I'm stressing about this thing at work or something else. If we're not able to show up for people and participate in relationships, that could be a sign. We might need to see a professional. Let's say I used to enjoy going for walks or working out or petting animals, and I just don't anymore. It all just seems like so much work. I have had days where like even showering just feels like too much. Anybody else? Where you're like, wow, that seems like a lot of work. I don't think I have the energy. So just pay attention. If you have more of these days where the things that you used to do, you just can't do, and you just don't feel like yourself, that's when I would reach out. I'd speak up and look into seeing someone, okay? Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. We're good, we're good. But then the next thing, so okay, we decided that maybe we are struggling a little bit. We don't feel like ourselves. We aren't able to focus at work, or we're not showing up for our friends or family, and we're gonna see somebody. Like, that's not hard enough to already decide. But then there's the question of, well, what makes a good therapist? How do I know if they're garbage or not? Maybe they're terrible and I don't even know, or maybe they're great. How do I know who I should see or what to look for? A lot of people have questions about that, and I think the reason that we have, I'm back. I think the reason that we have those questions and problems is because nobody talks about it. Nobody says like, oh, this is what a good therapist is like, or this is how you should, these are the questions you should ask of your therapist. This is how it should work with the relationship that you have with them. And so I want to go through a few of the ways to know if you're seeing a bad therapist, and then we'll get into how to know you're seeing a good therapist, okay? Because it's not always just the flip of the other, but some of them are, you'll see. So there are 8 signs that you're seeing a bad therapist. And I know that already sounds like way overwhelming, but I promise it totally makes sense. So the first is if they don't remember important details about you. And I know that kind of goes without saying, but they should remember your name. I'm sorry, I've had viewers of mine tell me they've had therapists repeatedly call them by the incorrect name. Like, let's say your name was Paul and they keep calling you Pete, and you're like, how many times do I have to correct you? They should remember important details. And obviously it might take a couple of sessions for them to get an idea. Remember that your mom's name is Judy and your dad's name is, Steve. But after they've asked things, I mean, we have notepads and laptops. We should be writing that stuff down. Trust me, I still take old school notes. But they should remember those details, because not only is it just part of getting to know somebody, you wouldn't meet a new friend and then like 6 months in you're like, hey, what's your name again? I forget. That'd be so rude. So it shouldn't happen in therapy, but they should also be able to keep track of people in your life and things you're doing. It's kind of just part of that relationship building. And so if you have to repeatedly remind them of why you're there, what you do for a living, your name, your spouse's name, or your best friend or roommate, you might want to consider seeing someone else that's a little more present and there with you. And the second sign, and this is one that happens a lot, and this is why I really think it's important we hear this, is if they spend the session talking about themselves. I know that sounds weird, but that's not, like if I'm in session with a client, that's not my time. You know what is my time? My own therapy session, because that's where I get to work my stuff out. I don't work it out on your time. That's 50 minutes for you. The only 50 minutes, like most of my patients get each and every week, that's just about them. And so if you find your therapist sharing a lot about themselves and like taking up like 25 minutes where you can't even get a word in edgewise, and they're like, oh, that reminds me of that time with my sister. No, that is not a good therapist. They should be doing that in their own therapy. The only time a therapist should really ever share much about themselves is when it kind of helps you like better understand or empathize. Like for example, I had a patient recently whose dad got really sick. And I lost my own dad to a heart attack when I was 24. And so I briefly just said, I know what this is like. I've been through that too. And that was it. I didn't share a lot about what was going on or how that had happened in my life, but I just wanted them to know that I'd been there. And that was it. So maybe a couple of minutes. And that's the only time I've ever shared anything personal. So just consider that in therapy too. Are they sharing a lot about their own life? And you're like, I know way too much about them. You really, as weird as it sounds, shouldn't know that much about your therapist. It's a weird relationship. It's all about you. It's not about me. And we want to keep it that way. Now, the third red flag or sign you're seeing a bad therapist is that they downplay your issues. A therapist's whole job, this is gonna sound really strange, but when we're in school, they teach us, like, when you're putting your office together, think of it like a warm holding environment, which I know sounds like really creepy. And you're like, what? But you just want people to feel comfortable. You want people to feel validated, heard, understood. That's really important, because if we know when you go to therapy, you talk about things that, like, maybe you don't tell everybody and you kind of are a little worried about it and you're just, it's uncomfortable. We're being vulnerable. That's hard. So your therapist shouldn't downplay what's going on with you. They shouldn't say, like, oh, don't worry, you just have depression. Or like, oh, it's just grief. I heard really loud and clear from my audience once. I had a guest on my channel, this is years ago, and they said something about, like, I just self-harm. And they were, like, downplaying their own stuff. And I was like, no, like, it's your issue, and it's important, and it's big, and it's something that we're gonna talk about. And they love that. And they were like, because a lot of people will say just or only, and it makes me feel like I have to prove how sick I am. Going back to that, like, am I worthy of help? Like, how sick do I have to be to get help? So a therapist should never make you feel like you have to prove that you deserve to be there, because we all deserve to get help. Every issue is a big enough issue. And so make sure that your therapist helps you feel that way. You feel validated. You feel heard. You feel understood, because you're all important, and therapy is the one place you should really feel that. The fourth sign is that a therapist shouldn't be accessible to you at all times. And even when I told Laura, I was mentioning this, she's like, why is that one important? And I'm like, it really is, because boundaries. And I know boundaries is such a therapist word, and you're like, I don't even know what that means. But the whole goal of therapy is, like, for you to do it on your own. It's like, fly. Like, we've learned all these tools together. Go out and do them on your own. And so if you have a therapist that's on tap, like, oh, I'm gonna call, I'm gonna email, I'm gonna check in with you, I can get feedback, I'm gonna text in the moment, and you're gonna tell me what I should do, then it's like, I don't know, it's almost like going to the gym and having your trainer, like, lift the weights for you. And then you're just standing off the side and you're like, yeah, I'm feeling so buff. Whew. But you're really not doing the work. It just doesn't work like that. And yes, a therapist should be accessible for emergencies and, like, changing to reschedule an appointment or something like that. But for the most part, you're on your own between sessions. And that's the time where you get to practice all you've learned. And I think that that's a really key part of therapy, so that we don't depend on our therapist for everything. And it's okay to want to and to think that you should, but a therapist should say, no, we'll talk, I'm not gonna answer emails, I'm not gonna respond unless it's an emergency, because that's the time I want you to, like, try, and they'll let you know about that. So they shouldn't be accessible 24/7. I'm sorry. We also have lives. I'm sorry about that too. Then the fifth red flag is that there's no end of therapy in sight. And I know I get so much crap for this online when I say this from other therapists, which goes to show it's why it's important that we know these things. We know what to expect and what a therapist should and shouldn't be. But therapy, the whole goal of therapy is you don't need it anymore. You shouldn't have to be in therapy your whole life. That's not the goal. The goal is to, like, come in and get help for a certain issue or upset, and then you have the tools and you feel empowered and you go out and you try them and you do it on your own. And sure, you can come back. Like I said, I've been in and out of therapy since I was 15. I'm 35, don't tell anybody. But it's a long time, and that's okay. But it's not something that I'm doing, like, constantly, every day, all day. I shouldn't be something that I am looking with my therapist and there's no real goals. We're just kind of hanging out. I've been chatting for years. That's not how therapy works. And the sixth red sign, don't worry, there's only two more, so don't worry. But the sixth red flag is that they tell you what to do. And I know you just got really bummed. You thought we were gonna fix all your problems. You're gonna come in and we'll be like, I have the magic solution. This is what you do. You tell your mom she's a jerk and you dump that boyfriend because he's a loser, and then everything's better. No. Sometimes we do need, like, a tough love kind of push from a therapist, but it's not like that. We can't tell you what to do, because there's this, I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of like a magical part of therapy, even personally, where I have this, like, light bulb where I realize that I've been doing the same thing over and over, and that's why, like, I had all these, like, bad relationships for, like, 10 years. Awesome. Or I, like, had this series of, like, friendships that just didn't work out and I could never figure out why. There's, like, this magic to figuring it out on your own, and all of a sudden thinking, I can change. I don't like that. That's why that's happening. And it's not only validating, but it also gives us some kind of sense of empowerment that we can make the change ourselves. And if a therapist was just to come in and be like, that's the problem, and this is what you need to do, we might be a little less likely to change. And we probably Might even look for another therapist because we're like, wow, that one's real pushy, pretends they know everything. It doesn't really work that way. So you shouldn't have a therapist telling you exactly what to do. They should just ask a lot of questions until you kind of figure it out as you answer them. Now, the 7th red flag is that they should always, I guess the red flag is that they don't make you feel like a priority. They keep rescheduling appointments, not showing up for you. This could kind of go hand in hand with them not remembering your name and stuff like that. That just makes you not feel important. And yeah, emergencies happen and therapists will have to reschedule. That's just kind of part of what we do, and life is unpredictable. And I've had emergencies, like I see a lot of eating disorder patients and self-injury patients, and if there's a bad infection because they got cellulitis from a cut, I have to go to the hospital, or if they're suicidal, I have to check up on them, and I might have to get them in for an extra session. So things can happen and schedules can shift, but you should always feel like a priority. For the most part, you should be seeing your therapist with some regularity, okay? And then the 8th and final, we're getting to the good ones here in just a minute. But the 8th red flag that you're seeing a bad therapist is that they don't give you much, if any, feedback. And the reason that this is important is because we can feel, at certain points in therapy, even personally, I can feel like I'm just stagnant. You know, where you're like, I'm just going through the motions, just showing up, but I don't know if I'm getting any better, and I don't know if this is making me feel any better. And we can kind of lose hope. Or I could just be in like feeling really bad for that month. Maybe things are stressful at work. Maybe I had a fight with my spouse. Maybe, you know, I don't know, there's an extra project that just got lumped on top of everything else. And then I found out I had to move at the end of who knows, right? We can have all sorts of things happen. So we can go through these lulls where we just feel like our worst self. But we should get feedback, and they should show us how far we've come. Sometimes it can be really, really powerful in therapy to look back and be like, hey, like 2 weeks ago, I thought that I'd never finish that and do okay, but I did. And we can forget all of the progress we've made. We have a tendency, I even personally have a tendency to do like the black and white thinking where you're like, I'm doing so great, and then like one trip up and you're like, throw in the towel, it's over. And by a therapist giving you feedback, that lets you know that, hey, I am moving forward, I am making progress, and it can just make us feel that little bit better when we maybe are kind of stuck in that rut, okay? Okay, so that's enough. Those are the things you don't want in a therapist. You don't want them to ignore you. They want them to forget your name. You don't want them to like tell you the therapy's gonna last forever. But the things that you do want, 5 signs you're seeing a good therapist. The first is that you feel like they're on your side, rooting for you, and wanting you to do well. And I know that kind of is like a hard to actually see and tangibly grab, but it's really that feeling, you know, when you meet a new person and you're like, I don't know why, but I like them. I don't really know why, but I think we could be friends. And you have that first good feeling. It's kind of that click that we call it, whether it's like friendships, people we're trying to date, or whether it's a therapist. And so you should kind of have that click. You don't know much about them. You're just getting to know them. Maybe you've seen them 2 or 3 times, but you're like, I like you. And so we want that with our therapists. We want to feel like they're on our side, like rooting for us, because that's really part of our job, is just being like your cheerleader. Then the second sign you're seeing a good therapist is, and this is really, really important, is that they clearly communicate with you about therapy. And I know that sounds really silly, but the whole reason of what I do and even talking here is because people don't know about therapy. They don't know what to expect. How long are sessions? They're 50 minutes, mainly because we have to pee and take notes and stuff in between. So how much does it cost? How long is it going to last? What are the treatment goals we're going to put together? And they're not going to know exactly how long it's going to last, but you could at least ask that, and they should be able to communicate that we're going to work together towards your goals, and I don't know, we'll check in 3 months or something like that. They should communicate with you what you need to prepare. Do they take insurance? There's all sorts of random questions that we might not know. And so it's really important for a therapist to talk you through what you can expect so that there's no surprises. Because I know even as a therapist, something that we do sometimes is we forget all that we know. Just like, trust me, you guys have acronyms and things that I do not understand. And you guys use them like everybody speaks your language. And I'm like, wait, what? Therapists are no different. We all have our own set of language and things that we use. And so if they ever don't communicate something to you, or you're not sure, like, what is CBT? And they're like, oh, it's actually cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm glad you asked. And they can explain it to you. So just make sure your therapist clearly communicates like what therapy is, what they're going to do with you, so that you feel like you're part of the process. You shouldn't feel like you're being drug along, okay? Now, the third sign that you're seeing a good therapist is that they challenge you. And this one's a little tricky, and it's something that you and your therapist will kind of get used to together. Because when I say challenge, I don't mean push you to your breaking point. You know, challenge you so much that you can't even get to work and you can't do all you need to do. That's not what I mean by challenge. I mean just make you a little uncomfortable. Ask you questions that you're like, oh, I know that answer, but they just really got in there. You want that. That's kind of the good challenge, because being uncomfortable is when we change. It's when we grow. And so you want your therapist to challenge you, because if they're not, then you're just like hanging out with a friend having a weird conversation and you don't know anything about them. Why are we paying for that? And I want to make sure you get your time and money's worth when you're in therapy, so make sure that your therapist is challenging you. Then the fourth sign that you're seeing a good therapist is that they help you better express yourself and your emotions. I don't know why, but there's something that's so good about having a word for what's going on. I can't tell you how many comments I get online when I'll do a video, let's say, about like ADHD or depression. And someone in the comments will be like, oh my God, I've been struggling with this for 10 years and now I have a word for it. I had no idea. I didn't know that was what it's called. And a therapist, it's part of our job to help you give language to that. Like, I've just been feeling like I can't catch my breath, and like I lay down in bed and my brain is just racing, and I'm just not sure what it is. And if I said, well, it could be anxiety, it could be a panic attack. Does it kind of feel like you're drowning? Do you feel like maybe you're dying? That's what panic attacks feel like, if you don't know. And once you have a word for that, it can sometimes make you feel so much better, because you're like, I'm not crazy. Number one, none of us are. We're all a little weird, and that's what makes it cool. So you're not crazy, and you're not making it up. And that's why it's so great to have words to put to how we feel, so that it's not just like, I don't know, I just can't catch my breath. It's like, we know how to describe our symptoms, but it's up to the therapist to be like, oh, that sounds like it could be this, this, or this. Let's talk about that. And that can be really validating, and it can give you language to explain it to friends and family as well. Then the fifth and final sign that you're seeing a good therapist is that they periodically talk you through all the work you've done. And that's kind of like I was already talking about with the red flag, is if they don't give you any feedback. A good therapist reminds you of how far you've come, all the work you've done. Even if it was, last week you got through a whole week without a panic attack, or you made it to work on time and you showered 3 times last week. That was amazing. That's awesome. That keeps us motivated. It makes us hopeful. And that's something that I believe every good therapist, every mental health professional in general should be able to give to their patients, is hope. Because that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us motivated. And so if they walk you through all the good things you've done, then it really helps with that. Okay, so let's say we've realized that we need some professional help. We've reached out. We found a really good therapist. Yay! And we're working our butt off in therapy. But now we've found that like maybe we couldn't go on that family vacation because we know that was going to be stressful, because our mom just like pushes our buttons and our aunt is all crazy, and then they both start talking and it's like too much, so I can't go. Or I have to take some time off from work because I need some more intensive treatment because I just can't get a hold of it on my own in 1 session a week. That's just not enough. How do we talk to our friends and family about our mental illness? And I get this question a lot. And the thing that I want to, like another kind of cool thing that's happened online is, because I get questions about how do I tell my friends and family, but by and large, the question I get asked more is, how do I help someone that I care about? And I really think that that's a cool thing, because what that really means is that for each of us that is struggling, there's like 5 to 10 people who just really want to help and support. And I truly believe in the good in people, and that just shows me that they're there and they're wanting to support. And so just keep that in mind, that people do want to hear from you. They do want to know how to help, but often they're just afraid to say it. They don't know how to ask. They don't know what to say. And so the things that I'm going to walk you through will give you kind of a format of how you can tell them about what's going on that's helpful for both of you, okay? And the first tip when it comes to talking to friends and family is to figure out what you want to tell them. That's the first thing, because it's about you, okay? It's okay to be selfish right now. This is about you and what you want them to know. So is it that you don't want to share too much about it? Maybe you're afraid of what they're going to think. Maybe you aren't sure, you don't have the words to put to it yet. Maybe we haven't seen a therapist yet, but we just want to tell them a little bit about it. So consider that. Like, maybe I just want them to know that there's a reason I can't go to that party next weekend. Maybe that's the goal. Maybe I want to tell them that the reason that I've been kind of distant is because I'm just having a hard time. And I don't want them to think it's about them. I want them to know something's going on with me. So take some time and kind of consider, like, what do you want to tell them? And before you go doing anything, then, and this is the most important, what do they need to know? And I say this because we're just starting a conversation here. I am the worst. I have what you call verbal diarrhea. When I decide I'm going to tell somebody something, I tell them everything, like from the beginning to the end, from soup to nuts. I'm an oversharer. And that isn't always helpful, because when you give somebody so much information, they really can't digest it and say anything. I can't tell you how many times I try to explain something to my mom, and I just like do that, bleh. And then she's like, okay, I'm gonna have to call you back, sis. And I'm like, perfect. I just overwhelmed her with information. I didn't get anything that I needed out of it. So consider what they need to know. It might just be, this is the reason I can't do this, or I'm going to need you to help me with the copay, or I'm going to need a little more support at home, or I'm going to need time off from work. We're going to have to figure out what it is we need from them and what they need to know, and then we're going to break it down into 3 to 5 bullet points. That's for the verbal diarrhea people like me. It keeps it short and to the point. So let's say I was having a really bad time with my depression. The 3 to 5 bullet points could be, I just wanted you to know that I think I've been struggling with some depressive symptoms. Bullet point number 1, that's it. Bullet point number 2, and that's why I haven't really been that present. I haven't been able to meet up that much, and I haven't really returned your calls or texts, okay? So I want them to know it's not about them, it's me. Then the third could be, and so I just would really like you to be understanding as I try to figure out what's best. That's it. Pretty simple. I think a lot of times, even, like I said, I overshare, so I think we overthink it, and we feel like we have to give them all this information. But just always remember, this is just the beginning of a conversation. And these are conversations that we want to keep having, right? These are things that we can talk about more as we better understand ourselves and as we get more comfortable communicating that with others. So don't feel like you have to have all the answers. You don't have to know exactly what you need from them right away. But again, just consider the fact that they're going to want to know how they can help. So it helps if we think about that ahead of time. If we're like, hey, I might need them to help get me to and from this. I might need help financially. I might need them to watch my kids while I do this. I might need them, to help me out with a project because I'm going to have to take some time off. It's best to have an idea of what we need from them, because they're going to ask. So at least be prepared for that, because people want to help, because, I believe in the good in people. And so that's really the best way to go about it. Put that list together. And then, this is going to sound weird, but I promise it will help. Practice saying it out loud. You can even put your earbuds in. Nobody will even know that you're talking to yourself. I'm sure people do that all the time. So just put your earbuds in. You can do it on a walk. You can do it in your car. You can, do it at home in front of the mirror in the bathroom. You can do whatever, whenever. However, you can create a little safe environment where you can practice saying it out loud, because there's this weird thing that happens when we are nervous about something. We're nervous about the way that we're going to communicate how we feel. The first time those words cross our lips, let's say it's depression, and we're like, I think I'm struggling with depression. We can get totally maxed out. We forget what we're going to say, and then I'll revert back to verbal diarrhea. I'll be like, and I don't know, so it started a few weeks ago, and I get way off track. I forget my bullet points. I forget what I need from them. Slow it down so they can digest it. So if you practice saying it out loud just a couple of times, you can even role play in your mind what you think they'd say back. It can really help us feel okay when we go to do it. We can feel like we know what we're going to say. We are pretty sure we know how they're going to respond, and we know exactly what we need from them. We're just going to stick to our points. And so practicing can really, really help. And then just set up a time and go do it. Don't do it in a super stressful, at Thanksgiving dinner, or that one time when everybody's screaming, and your cousin has a dog that's ran into the house, and things are on the floor and the kids are crying. No. Try to pick a time where it's pretty calm. You know what to expect. You can even meet up with them on your own, or you can have them over for lunch or dinner or something. Pick a nice time and then just say it. Because friends and family really do want to support. They really want to help. We just often myself included, give them way too much information or don't give them enough information so they don't know how to help. So then they keep trying to ask and we're like, why are you so nosy? They just want to help. They just want to support. And so if we kind of practice, then we can get it out in the right way. I know that was a lot. And I don't like to talk too much because I'm actually more interested in questions. But the key takeaways, okay? So if you just woke up from a nap, totally fine. I get it. You guys work long hours. But the key takeaways are how to know if you need help is if you aren't able to get what you need to get done each and every day, if it's just like a struggle, you're just white knuckling it, you don't feel like you're functioning in your life, it's time to reach out to someone. But also remember, we can all benefit from seeing a therapist. There's no bar to entry. Then the second key takeaway is that when picking a mental health professional, the most important thing is that you feel comfortable and understood by them. And then the third takeaway, make sure your therapist validates you, has you working towards goals, and you feel like they're on your side rooting for you. And then the final is when it comes to telling friends and family, keep it short and to the point and tell them how they can help you. Okay? I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for having me at this Google Talk. And now we'll take some questions.
We have a question in the dory. It reads, in your experience or opinion, does depression cause ADD, or can ADD and its associated impact cause depression? For someone experiencing both, which would you recommend treating more directly?
There's a lot of questions about which came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Was it the depression? Was it the ADD? It can go both ways. I've had a lot of patients that once we get one diagnosis, depression kind of can come along so easily with things because it can take away our hope. We can think oh, well, now I'm just weird and my brain works in a totally different way, and that's why I'm just struggling at work or school. And so it really would depend on their own situation, which came first. I would have them track back to when they first started experiencing the symptoms and what were those symptoms. But I know that ADHD is often misdiagnosed as other things, so my guess would be that, but I don't know. And then I think as far as treatment, whichever has been, whatever's the most debilitating, what symptoms are bothering them day in and day out, because they both warrant treatment, and you'd be able to find someone that can treat both. But definitely consider which symptoms are the strongest and making their days the most difficult. I know that's I don't give straight answers because everybody's different, so I'm sorry.
What if the therapist's only solution is medication and reassurance, but no real long-term solution?
Find another one. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but there's so many therapeutic techniques that can help people. Even for instance, I don't see this patient anymore, but I used to have a patient with schizophrenia, which a lot of people would say, oh, it's just medication. That's all it's going to help them. But no, he also had depression as a result of the schizophrenia, and the diagnosis was really hard for him. And then it was also relationships, because he had a hard time relating with the people in his life, and then he felt very disconnected. And so there are always tools. I would assume either the therapist is lazy, because we're people, we're good and bad at our jobs too. Don't forget that. You can see someone that cuts your hair perfectly and the other person just butchers it. And so therapists, they can be bad at their jobs too. Don't think that we have all the answers and we're all great. It's important for you to feel it out. And a therapist should never tell you it's only medication. They should understand your mental illness and have tools and help you work through it, even just behaviorally. Even if it's I want you to get more sleep at night and try to shower a few more times. Those are all really helpful tools. So don't think that medication is your only option. That's a bad therapist.
So you talked about how you could share that you need support. Can you talk more about if you notice that someone is struggling and they haven't opened up? Should we not say anything? Should we ask if they're okay? What are your suggestions?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that it depends on how close you are to someone. I think by and large it helps to just check in with people. The one thing that I've heard from a lot of my viewers is that they just want someone just to come by and be like, hey, how are you doing? Or I've noticed things, or you haven't really been yourself, or you haven't been at work or whatever. You can approach someone and just say, hey, I'm just thinking of you and I'm here if you need. We don't have to pry. There shouldn't be any judgment. There shouldn't be any because in judgment, help can look like judgment when it comes in the form of, well, maybe you should just insert thing that they think you should do. Maybe you should just see a therapist, exercise, sleep well, smile more. I don't know. People say all sorts of crazy things when it comes to mental health. They're like, you just need to smile more, like shower, like I don't know. Whatever they say, like that we don't want to do that. We just want to check in. We want to let them know that we're there. And then sometimes it's just being there. Like if you know a close friend of yours is really struggling, be like, I'm going to bring pizza and I'm just going to like watch Netflix with you. Is that cool? I'll be over. Sometimes that's all people want. It's just someone there. We don't even necessarily have to have a conversation, but just holding off on the judgment, offering to support them. Like, hey, if you ever need me to take you anywhere, you need help, getting help if you want, like if you want to see a therapist, I'm totally down, I'm around, but just know that I care. And I know it can suck. A lot of people feel really hopeless and helpless, like I don't know what to do for them. But just remember that we can't work harder than them. We all have to do it ourselves. We can't fix someone else. We can't make someone else feel better, but we can support, let them know that we love them, we care about them. And that's really where we should try to support. Mm-hmm. Hi.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
So good to see you.
So good to see you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course.
So my question is around like the method of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many options now, like Talkspace with text, video call, in person. Is there any difference between the effectiveness of any of these methods?
I haven't looked at, I don't know if there's any post hoc analysis. Do you know, Jessica? I mean, personally for me, I'll give you my opinion, but I haven't read research on this. In person is best because there's so much that we all know we can fake it. Trust me, I film videos on YouTube and 99.9% of the time I'm wearing pajama pants. You have no idea. You only see me from here up. So I think of that in relation to therapy where like, I'm going to notice if a patient is like fidgeting a lot, because I have patients like who sit on the very edge of the couch and I'm like, relax, But those things will be lost over Skype, let's say, or text or email. I think it's better than nothing. Like if people are in rural parts of the country or your work schedule is so chaotic that you just don't have time, I think it's better than nothing. And I do appreciate the Talkspace and the BetterHelps and stuff in the world, but I think that in person is best if you can make that happen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have some friends that really don't feel as if therapy would be helpful to them at all, and they just feel like they would have a really hard time opening up to someone else. What are your thoughts on if there are actually people who wouldn't benefit from therapy just truly because they couldn't communicate with a stranger about their problems? Do you think there are any other methods that could be effective?
I think it can help everybody, and I think people will be surprised when you find the right fit. Like I talked about what to look for in a therapist. If you take the time to find someone you connect with, you'd be surprised what you'll share. And how quickly you can open up. And it's normal to feel really nervous at first and be like, I don't want to. I remember even my dad would be like, I don't need to cry to a stranger and pay them money. And I get that. But if you find the right person, you can feel connected. But if someone is really adverse to therapy in general, I do think there's a lot of benefit in shared group activity with other people, where you have group camaraderie and you can communicate with other people. One of the saving graces for one of my viewers was to join, it was a dog hiking club, because she had a dog and that was her pride and joy. And so she found a lot of help and support from those people, because then she had a group of people where she could talk about what was going on. Because I think, friends and family are a great support. But if you don't find yourself feeling less the weight that you're carrying is lessened by that, then therapy is the best, but group activities can be helpful too. And you can do workbooks on your own too. I think those are really helpful. There's a ton of great workbooks out there. I even have them if you just wanted to peruse through my website, katimorton.com. I have an Amazon book list that I keep of books that I use with my patients for different issues, workbooks that I've even created myself that are free, or you can download them in the iBook store if you want to pay for it just to have it in that format. I think it's $1. So workbooks can be helpful too, and that's the way you can work on it on your own until maybe you're ready to go to therapy.
So I started going to therapy for the first time recently.
Yay.
And when I started telling friends or coworkers, just people in my life, that I was going to therapy, I was really surprised that a lot of them told me that they were already seeing a therapist.
Mm-hmm. People don't always talk about it.
So yeah, and I was surprised that I knew so many people that had already been seeing a therapist, and I was surprised that I didn't know about that. And I was also if I had known that, that probably would have been helpful, and maybe me going to see a therapist sooner, or just the advice you had about how to pick a therapist. So it led me to think more about, like, personally how I can help to normalize therapy. So I was curious if you have techniques or things that you do to normalize it amongst people you know or the world, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think that is the unfortunate thing is that people don't talk about it, because the real best way to find a good therapist is word of mouth, because people tend to think like you and know you. And if they really like theirs, chances are you might too. And if you don't, let's say you see a therapist too, just want to throw this out there, and you end up not liking them, like you just don't click, you can tell them like, hey, do you have any other referrals? Because I'm looking for someone, you know, who's maybe softer, warmer, harder, more tough love. And we have tons of referrals and people we've worked with over the years, so it's okay to ask that too. But to answer your question, when we're in conversation with other people, I think it's really important that we just bring it up in casual conversation. Kind of like even Laura and I were talking earlier, and I was like, yeah, something I'm working on in therapy is just hard, because I didn't realize that, like, I don't know how to express anger healthfully because it feels really out of control and I don't like it. And I'm like, ugh, you know, and I think those are conversations that we could have without leading with, in therapy I'm doing, or whatever. Or if you, like, somebody's noticing change in you, that's a great time to be like, yeah, thanks, I've been in therapy, it's been really helpful. Cool. Like, I think that's kind of a casual thing as well. I think just the more we can all talk about, like, how we feel, how seeing someone can help us feel better, people will be less like, you know, we won't be as scared, bless you, we won't be as scared to reach out and get help. But I just think in casual conversation, as it applies, I wouldn't go out of our ways to share about it. But if someone in your life is hurting, you could come to them and say, like, hey, I just noticed, you know, having a tough time. Be like, therapy's really been helpful to me. If you ever, you know, need any referrals, or I could tell you who I'm seeing, if that helps, and put it out there that way. I think there's just some nice ways to, like, plant seeds. But just know that we can't make it grow into a tree. We can just plant the seeds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So other than word of mouth, are there any good resources that you would recommend to find a therapist, or find, like, more importantly, find a therapist that you think is best for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. Like, it's okay when you call. Here, I'll start at the beginning, sorry. I'm like, that's too far in the head. So the best way is word of mouth, but also just going through your insurance and getting a list of providers. And then we take to the internet, because almost any therapist these days would have at least a website. At least. Not all of them do, like maybe the old fuddy-duddies don't, but most people have at least a website with a photo. And through how they write their bio out, because everybody writes their own bios, you know, and they have a photo, you can get a feel for them. And so I would encourage you to pick, like, 3 that seem kind of nice. Like, I picked my therapist, I got a couple names from, I think I had 3 or 4 names from my previous therapist who was retiring, and my therapist had, like, a, I don't know, she's kind of a hippy-dippy looking website, and I was like, ooh, I already like this. But that's just me. And so get a feel for it that way, and then make a few calls, and based on, like, when they call you and the message they leave, just, like, trust your gut when it comes to that stuff. But I always say insurance lists are best because they give you, like, so many in your area. And also know, then the thing I was gonna say also is, like, if you kind of have an idea of what it is, like, oh, I think it might be anxiety, or I think it might be depression, or I think it might be an eating disorder, or whatever you think it might be, ask them straight up, like, have you ever treated someone with insert thing? And gauge how well you like their answer. I know it sounds bad, but, like, you can be judgmental. It's your treatment. Find somebody that's a good fit for you. And then there's also, like, Vitals is a website where people leave reviews for medical professionals as a whole. There's some therapists on there. Also, even Yelp has some reviews. Like, but Google them. Do your sleuthing. And also know that people are more apt to leave a bad review than a good review, but at least gives you an idea of, like, what the problem was. And I wish someone needs to create, like, a review site for therapy, because there just isn't one. But those are the ones that I know of. And Psychology Today also, there's a lot of therapists in that too.
Thank you.
Okay, uh-huh.
I always feel myself trapped in an upset feeling, and it is so hard for me to get out of it, even if I understand fully that the situation is not very bad. I always need my friends, family, partner to console me and pull me out. I don't want to depend so much on other people. How can I help myself?
There's a lot of things you can do, and this is going to sound weird, but whenever we feel hopeless or we feel like we're getting sucked into something or we feel trapped, we have to work on our confidence. I know that sounds really weird, but it's like the I believe I can feeling. That when we feel like total garbage, we don't have that I believe I can feeling. We're like, I can't. That's all we hear. And so if you can start your day off with one thing that you like about yourself or one thing you're grateful for in your situation, and if one is really easy, let's try for 3. And so building that up will really help us feel more able to do it ourselves. And then when it comes to like what's helped you in the past, because you can be a detective. So if something is helping, if friends and family are helping and their support helps pull you out, what is it they do? Be a total sleuth on this. What is it that they say, or what is it they do? How do I feel that helps me get out of that? What is it? And then see if you can do it for yourself, because there's a lot of things that we can do ourselves that we honestly just don't even know that that's what it is. Do you know what I mean? It's like for instance, my mom she'll say like, yeah, I hear you. She says that a lot, and that makes me feel validated. And then I'm like, I wasn't being crazy, even if I was, but it just feels good. And so if that's what it is, then maybe it's a mantra you say to yourself, like, yeah, that how you feel is real. How you feel is warranted. That was a bad situation. Like trying to validate yourself can sometimes give you that power that maybe you're getting from your supports that helps lift you out. So kind of be a detective to figure out what it is that's helping you pull yourself out and see if you can do it for yourself.
If you could think of one thing that Google could do to help people with mental illness, what would it be?
Do they have therapists on site? That would be my number one recommendation, because you guys work a lot of hours, I know, and there's a lot that's asked of you. And so I think that being something that you can easily weave into your weeks without any issue would be really nice, making a point of seeing a therapist. Do you have multiple therapists or just like 1 or 2? Okay, cool.
We have a couple
Multiple?
of therapists here a couple days during the week.
Okay. So maybe just increasing their hours, because a lot of you are going to ask, right? We're going to talk to somebody and then we'll need them more. But yeah, I think that that's a really great resource. Also having EAPs, I don't know, because I don't know all of I'm sure you guys have all that stuff, but EAPs stand for Employee Assistance Programs, and that is essentially free therapy, and you should use it. It is amazing. That's the one thing I miss about working at the hospital system. Oh, EAPs. I have to pay cash for my therapist now. Damn it. So those are great. And then also just like, I think companies as a whole, it's the overall feeling and support that people can get from taking breaks. And I know we all need to work more, and we have, perfs and all this stuff is happening. It's like I'm always being judged, and I need to do better, and I want to get this promotion. I think rewarding taking a break in some ways would be helpful when needed, and it's almost like maybe forced vacation days, like this 2 days every 2 months or something. Somebody has to take this time off. Because I was talking to actually someone at YouTube, Malik Ducard, the other day. Such a nice guy, and he was talking about how his friend was like an Olympic athlete. I know, crazy. And he was like, the difference, his friend was telling him the huge difference between people who medal in the Olympics and people who don't, because they all arguably compete at this crazy, intense level. The difference between medaling and not medaling are the ones that know when to take a break and when to let their body heal. And I think that that's a really powerful, powerful message, especially when it comes to mental health. Like, from us doing great and feeling like on top of the world, like crushing life and like surviving, white knuckling it, is knowing when to take breaks. And I'm just as guilty as you guys. Like, just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean that I know that I do better. It just means I know better, which sometimes is worse. And so just, allowing people to take breaks, because I think that is really can make the difference.
But what about Google not as an employer, but as a platform for the world?
Oh yeah, as YouTube as a whole, I have a lot of thoughts about that. That's like its own talk. I think that YouTube as a whole has really supported it's okay to be weird, it's okay to talk about your issues thing, and I think that's what makes YouTube so amazing. But I think as a creator with mental health content, it's so hard to monetize. So it's really hard for new people because I'm not going to work for everybody, right? There's going to be, I'm blonde haired, I'm a white girl, I was born and raised in Washington State. I have a feel to me, and just like we're talking about, therapists are all different, and there should be a lot of different me's in a lot of different avenues that come from a lot of different backgrounds, so that everybody feels heard and understood. And if they can't monetize, they can't live on YouTube. And I worry about that, because I definitely have my ins because I've been on the platform for almost 8 years. But the new people, like there's a therapist, she just started out, I think she's out of Atlanta. She's great, but like I'm sure she's, like most of her stuff, I never see ads on her videos. She's been at it for like 6 months. But that's really the main issue, because I think the more that we're able to monetize educational, helpful information, the more we can live on the platform. Cool. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope it was helpful. If you have any follow-up questions, like I'm all over social media. I do my best to answer as much as I can. I have tons of videos. So if you have a question, just like YouTube Kati Morton, insert question that you have. And yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks.